Hello everyone, it's John Cope from Cope Racing Transmissions. Thanks for checking back into the CRT channel. I'm going to let you guys know on some progress of the Casper-Matic. I actually have number 3 right here. And what is today's date? Today is Thursday, day 11th. I should have the whole batch, all of them, here by next week sometime. 40 valve bodies coming. Something Tim and I learned. Tim, as the White Lightning, he was kind enough to let us use his truck for testing of the valve body. And he just picked his truck up Monday because he had a converter failure. And while the truck was here, we had enough time. We put the final tweaking on the lockup, which works beautiful on and off by the switch. And a lockup will work in any gear. Tim brought his truck back. A converter had failed. We sent that converter back. We sent Andy's converter back. And we're probably going to deal with Precision Industries when it comes to the lockup converters, both in gas and diesel. I feel much more confident with what they're doing and what they have been doing. They're also going to be bringing back the lockup converters for the 518 and 46RE. But I learned something today that I want to pass this on to people who are interested about the valve body and what we learned, what we discovered. You know, Tim's truck was the first truck that, other than our plow truck, I bought a 4-wheel drive Ford truck, and we put the valve body in my homemade valve body just to make sure that it worked, and it did. But we used Tim's truck to do all the tweaking because it was much faster than our stock F250 plow truck. So when we originally put the first billet production valve body in Tim's truck, it worked beautiful. The 1-2 shift, everything, it was perfect. I was amazed. We just had a little bit of tweaking to do with the lockup, and we just finished that. The lockup, I discovered the 250 psi mainline pressure was overpowering all the lockup solenoid, or overpowering the lockup solenoid, and physically turning it on. If you take a solenoid pack, either for E4OD, and you just take like a round center punch with your fingers and just push down, up and down on the solenoid pack, it doesn't take much pressure to open the solenoid pack. And so what was happening is the high pressure was actually pushing the check ball down the solenoid pack and going through the solenoid in the passage, and it was feeding itself the lockup. The high pressure was opening the lockup solenoid and turning the lockup on as soon as we started it. So through a process of learning, teaching ourselves what restrictor we need, and orifice restrictor and orifice bleed, going oil to the solenoid pack to lower the pressure to where we decide where it needed to be so it works on its own. And so the pressure for the solenoid pack is much lower, but not in the rest of the tranny. The rest of the transmission is still getting its 250. So we figured that all out. That believe it or not, took 2 weeks of Lucas out there pulling that pan and doing that. But we got that perfect. But when we had Tim's truck here, when the converter failed, we would drive it after we put the new converter in, and it felt like it had a terrible overlap. Every single time we would shift it into from first to second, the truck would lay down for a second or two and then pick up. It was terrible. And then after we drove it and we're tweaking and we're like, what is it? What is it? I ripped the transmission out, looked at everything, put it back in. I'm like, man, we got overlap. Lucas noticed while we were driving it, it has a wideband gauge in it. And we noticed every time we would make the shift from 1 to 2, and it would buck in third and in overdrive, every time we make the shift, it would go lean. So we're like, oh man, it's fuel related, not transmission related. So we filled up the gas tank all the way to full. That didn't do it. We got a fuel pressure gauge on there, and it was low, but it was never going down that far. And then I decided to take a Noid light and put it on one of the injectors. And we discovered that when we were making the 1-2 shift, that the Noid light would be blinking, it was pulsing the solenoid, and then it would just go dead for like a second or two. Do the 1-2 shift one more time and hold first gear for like 2 seconds, then shift it into second. So we're like, it's the tune. Something's going on with the tune. And it's not agreeing with the 1-2 shift. I don't know why, but it wasn't the transmission. So Tim came and picked up the truck, and once he got it to where he was going, he noticed through a scanner or some kind of live feed that on the 1-2 shift, it was getting some weird signals going to the injector that was coming from the neutral switch, which I don't know if that's the correct name, because it does more than allow the truck to start in park or neutral. It also tells the computer what gear you're in. It tells you if you're in reverse, in neutral, in first, or what would be D, and then 2 and 1. But we were told that the tune was flashed for a stick shift, but we were still getting transmission trouble codes for any code you can get in an automatic transmission for an E4R100. We were getting that code, so I wasn't solely convinced that the tune of the flash of the control module was dead on. So and as you remember, the very first video that we did, where we had Lucas driving the truck and I'm videotaping it, the very first video didn't have this laying down or that overlap feel at all. And so I'm like, well, how come this problem came about once Tim brought us the vehicle back from Florida with an overlap issue? So after talking with Tim, we had learned, because no one has done this before, as the first time that this valve body has been in this in usage and something like this. And this should have been erased with the tune, but I think you can only do so much with the factory tune. But what was happening was the computer saw us in neutral to D, and that is our 1 to 2 on the shifter, and the computer thought we were neutral dropping it, because we would be giving it gas, we would be traveling in first gear at whatever speed, and the higher the RPM, the worse the overlap was. So let's say I'm shifting at 2500, which is really nothing, and I shift from first to second. the Ford computer thought we were shifting from neutral to D. So the computer thought we were neutral dropping the truck. And this also explained why the truck would jump back and forth, because it thought we were downshifting at a high rate of speed. So the reason why this didn't happen the very first time Lucas and I drove the truck, because when Tim brought his truck here, the neutral switch, if that is the correct terminology, I should look to see what the correct name is on that, or the range sensor, Chrysler calls it a range sensor. The neutral switch is called, the correct terminology of that part is a transmission manual lever positioning switch. So basically it's a manual lever sensor. It detects where the manual lever is at all times. So if you're gonna flash your computer and use that sensor, you have to make sure that that sensor only tells the computer that you're in park, because neutral, according to that sensor, is now first gear. That sensor has been fighting us for quite a long time. So it's a good thing Tim stumbled upon that. He did that when he was at home on his truck. He's actually going to take the truck out he's going to, I believe it's North Carolina, is Rockingham in North Carolina, and he's going to meet up with Andy Wood, is going to be there. So we're going to have some great video of the truck making some passes, some trans brake passes, and I'll be able to get some feedback from him how everything is working. It worked great on the street. We're out here beating the shit out of it on the street. The trans brake worked great, second gear and everything. The lockup on and off, it really is a nice piece. So hopefully by mid next week, what is today? Today's the 11th, April 11th. So I should have all the valve bodies here by the 15th or the 16th that'll be available for sale. You can get the trans brake in first gear or second gear. Unlike like my Chrysler valve bodies where they're first and second gear launch. You can pick whatever one you want. The nature of the beast on this one is you can only have one or the other. So all the gas guys with the gas vehicles, the Ford Lightning guys, are definitely going to get first gear. They'll get first gear launch. The diesel guys, most of them right now, I went through, I keep track of everybody who's got one on, that is on the waiting list. And so far, 3 of the diesel guys are going to go do the second gear launch, and one of the diesel guys is going to use first gear launch. So, the only thing is, I will be perfectly honest, I haven't had the opportunity to have a truck here to test the second gear launch. I got this valve body that is capable of second gear launch with modifications that we do here at CRT. So I actually made one body, the main body, I'll take that manual valve out of there, that there's one main body, and with the way I did it, I'm not going to explain exactly everything I did. The way I did it, if I leave the valve body alone, it's a first gear launch. If I put a couple plugs in there and make a slight modification, it can be a second gear launch. But it can't be both. It's just the nature of how that transmission functions the way it does. Also, in first gear launch, the forward clutch pack is on through the manual valve. The coast clutch is on through the manual valve, and the low reverse clutch is on through the manual valve. Those are your forward launching gears. When you apply the trans brake, you're turning on the direct clutch. You let go of the button, the direct clutch lets off, the vehicle goes forward. On the second gear launch, the forward clutch is going to be on and the intermediate clutch is going to be on through the manual valve. Then when you apply the trans brake button, it's going to turn on 2 clutch packs instead of 1. It's going to turn on the direct clutch and the low reverse clutch. Now normally the low reverse clutch is on off the manual valve when it's in first gear. Well, of course you can't do that in second because you're in second. And you have to have that on because if you just turn on the direct clutch, then you're in third gear. And all you're doing is you'd hit the button and it would go into third gear. And so because the way the transmission, the power flow that transmission is designed, you have to turn on the low reverse clutch with the direct clutch for the trans brake to work. Now, I thought all I really need to turn on is the low reverse clutch because you'll have the forward clutch and the intermediate clutch on. You put the low reverse clutch on, then it works like the Dodge Demon transmissions, where instead of turning reverse and first on, or in this case second on, you're putting first and second on at the same time, thus locking up the transmission. But then every time you hit the button, the only thing the button will do is apply the low reverse clutch. I hope you're sticking with me on this. If I'm talking too fast or you're not catching it, go back and watch it again. But basically, the only way that I can get it to work is now that's not just me, anybody. The way, the physical way it works, you have to turn on the direct clutch and the low reverse clutch on. So now we have 2 clutches, 2 clutch packs that have to be applied by the trans brake when normally it's 1. And we have 2 clutch packs that have to release for a clean launch when normally it's 1. So on the second gear launch, I'm going to have a different set of tolerances for the low reverse clutch and the direct clutch than I would the first. Actually, I want twice as much clearance in the low reverse drum and the direct drum as you would do for the first gear, because what you're doing, even though it's going to take a little bit more travel for those pistons to apply, the more travel the piston applies, the more load the springs inside the clutch pack will progressively get stronger and stronger. Thus, you'll have, when you let go of the trans brake, the springs can work harder to get that clutch off faster so you can have a cleaner launch off the second gear brake. So I also got to change the directions around for the second gear brake compared to the first. And I'm also going to let everybody know about the manual lever positioning sensor, or the manual lever sensor. If you have that on, or gas or diesel, it's going to tell the computer when you're in first shifting to second. The computer's going to think you're in neutral dropping into D, and it's going to give you all kinds of hell. So I recommend. Now, how Tim fixed his is he figured out which wires to snip. So he snipped all the wires off that sensor except for the neutral switch. Well, in this case, it's the park switch. You can't have it start neutral because neutral is first. And some other news regarding the Casper-Matic. I actually have Andy's transmission done. You've seen me built it in the previous video. Andy Wood and John Wilburn are coming down here. I believe it's the 26th, which is in 2 Fridays from now, to pick up the transmission. And we have a couple other guys that race the No-Name Nationals are going to be here. I know that Jackie and Patrick Abbott are coming. The guys from Tall Garage are going to be here. Jeff with the from Two Hacks Garage is going to be here. I'm sure Dougie from Wolverine Garage is going to be here too, and a couple other people. It's kind of like an open invite if you're in the area for that date. and you'd like to come down and meet Andy or some of the other racers of no name, you're more than welcome to come. You have to double check back on that date though. I'm waiting for Andy. He's got some stuff going on with work, and he's going to let me know Monday if that date is absolute or if they're going to move it back a week. This weekend, Jeff is going to be here to put the C6 transmission in the T-Bird and get that running. So hopefully it's nice out Saturday. We can do some road videoing of him getting squirrely. Also, I got the 8-second rear end housing for my 11-second Mr. Haney. It turned out beautiful. It was a strange rear end. We're going to get that in there. And as soon as that truck's done, all I have to do is put the rear end in it and put the slicks on it, and it's ready to go. So as soon as Haney's done and off the rack, then I'm going to get over there on the Cornet and finish fabbing up those engine mounts. So the engine and the transmission are in there and steady. I decided I'm not going to move the engine back. I wanted to originally do that as I did with my 440s, but the one header pipe is not going to clear the steering gearbox, and I'm not going to cut and fab up headers. And the only reason why I was moving it back is so the car does a little bit of a wheelie. Hopefully it still does. If it don't, it's no big deal. I don't care. Other than that, I think we're done. Some good information. We learned a lot of self-taught things on the Caspermatic Valve Buddy, what to do, what not to do. We're getting some good results. Tim and Andy are going to be at the track this weekend, so hopefully by next video I'll have some good video coverage, some content of Tim racing his truck, and I hope he has fun, and I wish him luck. So until next time, Mopar to you. And I did forget about you Mopar guys. I know a lot of my videos has been on this Caspermatic Ford valve body thing. Bear with me. I've been thinking about that. We're going to get some Mopar stuff to you guys. So have a good one.